G'day, it's Aussie Dollar Man here, and in this video I want to talk about some recommended reading for Gann researchers. If you've been around the field as long as I have, you'll know there are so many books out there, courses, everyone claiming to have cracked Gann. Problem is they all tell you something different. So my belief is that if you want to understand what Gann did, your best bet is to get in there and do the work yourself. So in this video, I just want to give you some resources that I think are worth reading and it should hopefully save you some time in your research journey. The most important book, if you want to understand how WD Gann forecasted and traded the markets, is the book, The Tunnel Through the Air. Make sure when you do get this book that you find the version. It's approximately 418 pages. The book is coded in many different ways. If you get different versions of the book that have fewer pages, for example, the codings or certain codings aren't going to work. Some of them will still work, some of them won't. But it's recommended that you get the original book with its 418 pages. The other book that Gann says is most important is the Bible. Gann says he learned everything about forecasting from the Bible. He recommends that you read The Tunnel Through the Air 3 times and that you then go and read the Bible 3 times. Now, obviously, there's a lot of different versions of the Bible out there. The King James Version is an important one. I believe that's what Gann was using. And I'm told that the 1611 edition of the King James Version is the one that you want. I have both of these, King James Version and in the older 1611 edition, and I cross-check all of the Bible quotes from there when I'm studying them or looking at them through Tunnel Through the Air. So those are the two most important, but it's pretty hard without the proper background and understanding to pull much out of these two books, and that's where the other books come in, and we're going to look at those now. Firstly, you're going to find a lot of information in Gann's other works. So Gann wrote a ton of books. There's Truth of the Stock Tape, Wall Street Stock Selector, The New Stock Trend Detector, How to Make Profits in Commodities, 45 Years in Wall Street, The Magic Word. There was also the Gann Commodities course and Gann Stock Market course, which are basically a series of courses released at different times and meshed all together. But you're going to find a lot of information that tells you specifically how Gann did certain things. You're going to find them across all of those works. So at some point, if you want to crack Gann, it is recommended that you read all of Gann's books and courses. Then there's Gann's reading list, and this is a 2-page set of notes printed on Gann's letterhead. You can find a clearer copy just by doing a Google search for Gann's reading list. There's just under 80 books on here, and you'll see they're under the titles Numerology, Astrological, and Scientific and Miscellaneous. I've probably read about 55 to 60 of these books. I haven't read every single one. Some of them are very quick to read, and you'll flick through them and you think, okay, that was interesting, but doesn't really help me with my trading. That's fine. You can move on to the next book there. Others are vitally important, and I'm going to pick out a couple of those for you, as well as some books that are not on that reading list, just to try and save you some time on your research journey. The first author outside of Gann that I think is important to read is Sepharial. Sepharial's name was Walter Gawn Auld. If you read Tunnel Through the Air, WD Gann's best friend is Walter. That's probably a little bit of a clue there. And you'll find that out of all the books on Gann's reading list, Sepharial's name pops up the most. However, not all of the books that I recommend that you read from Sepharial are actually on that reading list. So I'll go through a quick list of them here. The Science of Foreknowledge, that's mentioned in the foreword of Tunnel Through the Air. Gann specifically writes about the science of foreknowledge. Could be a little bit of a clue there. There's the Basis of Scripture Prophecy, Cosmic Symbolism, Hebrew Astrology, and Kabbalah of Numbers. There's actually 2 books, a couple of 100 pages each. Kabbalah of Numbers 1 and 2. Another author that I would recommend that you read is George Bayer, who's a contemporary of Gann's. He was talking about the same sorts of things as Gann, but with a different teaching style and a different writing style, obviously, and a different approach. It is worth reading Bayer, if for no other reason than to expand your horizons in terms of astrology, astromechanics, and different things like that. Here are some suggested books for George Bayer. There's Money, Time Factors in the Stock Market, The Egg of Columbus, which is only about 18 pages. George Walston, Expert Stock Trader, which is sort of George Bayer's version of Tunnel Through the Air. It's that style of book. Bible Interpretation, and 400 Years of Astrology. Now, in terms of other authors or other books that are highly recommended as you go down this Gann research journey, these next books are all books that were written after Gann's time. The first one is Astrocycles and Speculative Markets by Luther Jensen. Some people say Luther Jensen worked with Gann, some say worked for Gann, some say they didn't know each other. Some say that Gann and Luther Jensen were doing the same thing. Constance Brown, who wrote the book The 30-Second Duel, she claims to be, and I don't doubt her claim, some people doubt it, I don't doubt one way or the other, she seems like a legitimate Gann author who's done some good stuff. Constance Brown claims to have Gann's suitcase, which was given to Gann's pilot, Eleanor Smith, and one of the authors of works contained in Gann's suitcase was Luther Jensen, and it appears Gann did find Luther Jensen to be a valid source and a recommended reading source. So Astrocycle Speculative Markets by Luther Jensen, not an easy read. Sacred Geometry by Robert Lawler, if you're interested in some of the angles and squares work in Gann, highly recommended Sacred Geometry by Robert Lawler. Cosmic Secrets by Russell Smith. Quadrivium by Miranda Lundy. This is actually 6 books in one. It deals with the ancient quadrivium or subjects that were deemed important back in the day. So it deals with number, music, geometry, and astronomy. That's a really good, simple book. It explains a lot of concepts and ideas in simple forms. I don't think any of these books you're going to open up and find Gann's system just laid out in front of you, but they all give you, there's some good ways of thinking in there. There's some important concepts that you need to learn, and they're all books that I highly recommend that you read. The last one there is The Beginner's Guide to Constructing the Universe. That's by Michael Schneider. None of the books on this list, aside from Luther Jensen, the rest of these books, they're all after Gann's time, or certainly after Gann's death. So they're not books that he would have been reading at the time, but I do recommend these books on this list. There's about 16, 17 books that I've put here, excluding Gann's works, which I do think that you should read. There's about 16 or 17 books here. I guarantee you that you will find a lot of value in those books. I'm not saying that you'll find every single secret of Gann's in there, but there's a lot of gold in those books. It's going to cut your reading down or cut your research time down as well. At the end of the day, when you put all of Gann together, it's important to have an image of how everything looks, but when you put it together, this is roughly what you should be visualizing. This is a simple bar chart of a market, just from a top down to a bottom. And the lines that I've drawn, we'll start with the pink line. That's just gone straight from the top all the way down to the bottom. That line represents a larger cycle in the market, goes from a top to a bottom. And then there are medium-sized cycles like these green lines that you see here. Okay, and then there are smaller cycles as well, like this blue one here. And at the bigger turns, so for example, at the top and the bottom, you'll see there's a pink, a green, and a blue line all at the top. And then at the bottom, you've got the pink low, the blue low, and the green low all together as well. The cycles all sync up together. They work together. This is what you're looking for. That's in terms of time cycles. There's a number of those cycles contained in Gann's book, Tunnel Thru the Air. You will not be able to extract pretty much any of them without doing some background research and understanding certain things. So again, the books that I've given you on this list are going to help you in that regard. In addition to the time cycles, there is a pricing aspect to them, which is one of the most coveted secrets in the Gann field. Those who have it or claim to have it are very, very reluctant to give you anything on it or any detail on it. You'll find details in Tunnel Thru the Air and in some of Gann's courses as well. So that's worth jumping in and having a look at too. But Gann said that every top and bottom in the market is mathematically related to other tops and bottoms, and they can be mathematically worked out. So not only can you have a large cycle telling you that the market is going to run down from this point down to this point. By the way, the larger cycles have some orb either side of them. That's why you need the smaller cycles to tie them all together. But when you've got multiple cycles working like this, you can structure a campaign in the market, say from a high to a low like this, and you can look at some of those smaller turns and you can consider adding to your position or maybe taking some profits and then getting back in a little bit later as well. Another point that I want to make here is that the cycles, sometimes you'll see people say WD Gann is perfect and that it should always be perfect. In my experience, it's perfect sometimes, a fair bit of the time, but it's not always going to be perfect. You're always going to get the odd period of the market like this, where, for example, There's no cycle running up here, or certainly not one of these three cycles. There are other cycles out. There's probably a cycle responsible for this, but you're going to get these little misses in the market where if you're short from the the big turn and you're staying through there, that's not going to bother you. And if you're a competent swing trader, that's not going to bother you. But if you're just trying to trade off the cycles alone, that might confuse you a little bit. Don't let it get to you. Move on. If you can get anywhere from 80, 85% success in terms of calling the markets like this, calling these cycle pivots, you're going to go a long, long way in your trading. And then it's just about good money management, good psychology, and good entries and exits in the market. So that's how it looks. A reading project that I would recommend for you. Gann says to read the Tunnel Through the Air and to read the Bible 3 times each. Over the next little period, I'm planning to read those 6 times. So the Tunnel Through the Air 6 times and the Bible 6 times. When I say I'm going to read Tunnel Through the Air 6 times, that doesn't mean I go and sit by the beach and just casually read through Tunnel 6 times. I will be going through it using different approaches and focusing on different things, targeting different things on each read through. It is a very dense book. There's a lot of layers. There's a lot of information in there. There's very little filler in the book. There's a lot of good stuff in there. So, but I'll have a strategic plan each time I go through there. I'm also planning to read all of the other books on the list 3 times each, and that brings me to a total reading target of over 20,000 pages. And I told a friend this, I'm going to be doing 20,000 pages, and they just said, "Are you crazy?" I mean, they couldn't even imagine doing that. But I said, well, my plan is to do that over a 7-year period to complete some certain research projects that I've got and to answer some questions that I still have. I've come a long way in the Gann field, but there's always a little bit further to go. But there's really 3 more things that I want to know, and once I've done that, I'll be satisfied. But over 7 years, 20,000 pages is just 8 pages per day. When you break it down like that, it is very easy to read 8 pages. For most of those books, you can do it in 20 minutes a day of reading. Or if you have a tough week, you do a couple of hours, 1 day a week, and then you move on. But you can get through a big, massive reading project like that just by working through that a little bit each day. The question at the end of the day is, how badly do you want to have this? How badly do you want to know this? You can take some of Gann's very simple stuff. I'll give you an example. Chapter 2, form reading of Gann's book, How to Make Profits in Commodities. There's plenty of stuff in there that's going to make you a really good trader or a really good swing trader and form reader of the market just in that one chapter alone. A lot of people will do that. They'll make money from trading. They'll say, that's what I got into trading for. I didn't get into trading to do a 5 or 10 year research project. I got into trading to make money. I'm making money. But for those of you like me who want to know it all, this reading project, I'm not going to tell you which of those books are the most important. Certainly some of those books are more important than others, but I will be reading all of them multiple times over this next 7 years. If I did say to you, start with this book or this is important, you'd put too much focus on that book and you'd miss a lot of the other stuff that's important in the other books as well. So don't treat any of the books as more important or less important. Treat them as all important. Work through them at your own pace. Be clear on what you're looking for in the market, which is the cycles. And then after you've got the cycles, work out the price mechanics there. There are higher levels above that, but for most traders, if you know the time and the date and the price, of all of the major turns and all of the medium and minor turns in the market, you've pretty much got what you wanted from trading the markets and from forecasting using WD Gann's techniques. That's all for this video. All the best with your research project. If you are a seeker of the truth and you're going out there looking for this stuff, I do commend you and I wish you all the best on that journey. All the best of luck. Have fun doing it. It is a blast. It also is a fair bit of hard work. Again, you have to decide how badly you want it. All the best. Bye for now.